All right, so welcome back to the basement where it's top level content from the lower level. We're back in the studio. As you seen last week, we really didn't have a whole lot of podcasts going on. We had we had an actual fishing challenge that we had done. We're still working on that video. That does take a whole lot of editing, and it's hard for when you're first learning, ain't it, Drew?
It is.
I just started into a little bit of that video editing, and I'm like, whew, that's tough money, and I'm terrible at it. It's tough, ain't it?
I'm not the best either.
Well, I mean, I'm not either, but like the editing, like you feel like this is where it makes or breaks, regardless of how good your video was, you know?
Yeah, it's true that. So we got a couple mini topics that we're going to be going over this week. We're going to try out a different type of approach. We're going to go with like some shorter episodes, but more episodes. See how people like that. So the actual first topic we want to talk about is actually in coaching. And it more specifically youth coaching for us, because that's what we are. We all coach football. I coach baseball now. Hunter coached basketball. You've coached basketball in the past. Mm-hmm. So I actually help with T-ball as well. But the thing we want to focus on today is how youth coaches can help players set up life skills. And that could be as simply as goal setting, just teaching perseverance, leadership skills, decision-making, resilience, adaptability, time management, and organization. Do y'all agree that in youth coaching that you could set up life skills for kids, teach them?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Because, I mean, with youth coaching, you know, and I'll even say, you know, especially with our area, you don't know what kind of a background kids have. You don't know what kind of structure they've got at their home. They may go to your football practice, and that may be the first structure they see.
Yeah.
Sometimes, possibly in their life, if it's the first time they've ever played a sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you're already starting to, you know, so it can positively impact them in that sense, too.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I mean, one thing I focus on, I have three things that I focus on, and one of them is overall just being a good leader. That is one of my main focuses is that I try is leadership. And Hunter coached with me this year, and he knows that a lot of times when we run our laps around the field, you have your more athletic kids, mostly your leaders finish first, right? And then you have a couple of that kids that are not very confident. They kind of, you know, because confidence does factor in to the performance.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
If you don't believe in yourself, you may think you're trying hard, but you're not trying as hard as you can. So, would y'all agree with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So I mean, look at some of the best athletes that you've ever seen. You know, people will talk about, oh, they're just too cocky. They're too cocky. No, they just have that confidence in themselves. Yeah. And you know, if you're playing basketball, you don't want somebody that's doubting themselves to take that last second shot. Mm-mm. You want somebody that's like, you know what, I'm the best person on this court taking that shot.
Yeah. But what I'll say was when they finished that lap, I made them touch the fence, turn around, and go back to the back of the line to cheer everybody else on. Not only did it show them that, hey, this is what a leader does. You always cheer everybody on. But it also built that camaraderie, that teamwork into them. Showed them how to work together as a team and always believe in somebody and believe in each other.
That's definitely one thing every season that I preach, because when you coach the older kids, man, older kids are more likely to click up.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, 100%.
Especially if they go to school together and maybe this kid's not into the same music or same whatever that the other one is. But anyways, teaching them to be a good teammate. Like, no matter if you may not be your favorite person, but they're still your teammate.
Right.
Just push them to, like you said, to cheer on your teammate. Mm-hmm. If your teammate's making a lot of mistakes in a game, don't put them down. Don't argue amongst yourself. Build them up.
You see that a lot, and especially the older kids. You start seeing them really like, man, that was your fault we lost this game. That was your fault that we didn't get that first down.
Yeah.
It was your fault we gave up that run. Whereas what we need to do is to be instilling in these kids, be like, hey, man, it's all right. We'll get them next time. Hey, it's going to be all right. Focus on this next play. Last play doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. We got to instill that as coaches in these kids' minds that it's okay. We mess up. Acknowledge that you mess up and learn from it instead of dwelling on it and constantly having a negative outlook on everything.
Oh, yeah, because if your kids are, like, chasing perfection with every single play, that it really hurts their adversity. I know that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about was, you know, how much sports can teach adversity. Because you look, we've kind of touched on it a little bit in like our previous episode with like travel ball and stuff like that. You get these travel teams that'll join up in a rec league, and then these are kids that practice 365.
Yeah.
And then they're playing up against kids that, regardless of what age group it's in, it's their first time playing.
Right.
So, those kids that haven't played before that are playing against these kids that have been playing basically since they came out the womb, their feelings are going to get hurt at first because they're going to be like, wow, am I really this terrible?
Yeah.
And it's not even their fault. It's just, and it's nothing against the kids that work hard, If you work hard, your performance should reflect that, and that's not always a bad thing, but whenever you got kids that this is the first time playing a sport and they're going up a team like that already has that chemistry, that talent, and that combination, it does make it harder on them.
Yeah, I mean, it
Oh,
does. It really does. And that's the thing about adaptability that you have to teach with kids. Sometimes, like, for example, I'll use my son as an example. When I coached him at Montcalm, I had him at quarterback. Whereas when we moved over to travel ball, he was supposed to play quarterback, but we found that he adapted better in that speed because travel ball is a different speed of game. Mm-hmm. It's faster pace. He adapted better at the wide receiver position. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you got to teach him like, hey, I know you want to play quarterback. However, at this speed and this level, you are better at wide receiver.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to lean on that and teach them that adaptability. One big thing I want to hit on is goal setting, because this could teach you a lot about your life. Is a lot of times if we tell these kids, we want to win games, right?
Yeah.
But if we come out there as a coach and we immediately say we're going to go undefeated and win the championship, that's our goal. Well, yeah, that's a great goal, but is that it could be an achievable goal, yes. But is it something that you really want to go? Maybe you want to be like, let's win this next game. Or, hey, let's get a tackle this thing.
Yeah.
Set small, achievable goals. Like, set a big long-term goal, but set these short-term, achievable goals so when they're hitting these milestones, they're building that confidence up till they hit that big milestone.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is us as adults, we like to set these huge milestones that are so far away outreach. When we see ourselves not getting to it, we start getting discouraged and we lack that confidence, and then we just quit. And if we don't teach the kids at a young age in sports, because that's our responsibility, that there is you need to set small achievable things, then you're not setting them up to do goal setting to get correct.
If you could listen to like any of these like inspirational speakers or anything like that talk about goal setting, they tell you need to look at more as a ladder. Here's a goal here. Okay, I achieved this. Here's my next goal. I'm achieving that. And then you just work your way up by achieving littler goals. And then whenever you get discouraged, you can say, well, yeah, this is where I'm at now. I'm not where I want to be, but look at how many other goals I've already accomplished.
Yeah.
And they said that helps a lot with big goal setting because it keeps you from getting as discouraged.
Yeah, right.
So I feel like something that I like to do anyway is set little personal goals for each player, especially a player that's struggling.
Yeah.
Because that setting little attainable goals for this kid, like, hey, by next week's practice, when we run this tackling drill, you're gonna be able to make the tackle, or something, just something along those lines. Or like when we do blocking drills next, you're not gonna let him get to the ball. Small attainable goals for the kid, and just do them all season long. And that really helps them develop as a player because it keeps their confidence boosted because they're all the time attaining the goals that you set for them.
Exactly. And that's another thing. When they don't meet those goals, they're going to be hard on themselves because they realize they didn't meet it. Mm-hmm. So what we need to do is kind of say, hey, we'll get there. It's going to be all right. Give that word of encouragement. They already know they didn't get it. We don't be like, oh, man, you messed up. Why can't you get it right? We don't need to do that as coaches. You need to kind of push them forward.
All right, so with that being said, okay, say you set like a personal goal for a week, turned out to be too much for a kid to handle. Mm-hmm. How do you approach the next week? Do you cut that goal in half or cut it down some, or do you set that same exact goal?
No, what I would do is, me for example, is I would look at what the kid achieved getting to that goal. Okay. And we would acknowledge the progress he made towards that goal, and then I would go from there. Like, if it's something that,
it could be situational.
Yeah, it could be situational, 100%. Then you got decision-making. And that's big in sports. Because a lot of times, like with baseball, for example, right now, when you're fielding the ball, it's got to be quick. Boom, boom, boom. Throw it to the next. But you could put so much pressure on those kids that it makes them doubt their decision making. So you got to kind of, you got to tell them what to do, but don't be like, man, you should have done it the first. Hurry up. And, we do that as coaches.
Right.
A lot of times. But we got to understand that they're trying to process this in their mind. And if we're making it harder for them to make a decision, all it's going to do is just scare them.
Oh, yeah.
Just scare them. So we got to kind of foster good, positive decision making.
And it definitely comes down to the different levels that you're coaching, too. Because, if you're talking about high school players, okay, they're at that level where they do need to be processing stuff at a faster pace. Especially the ones that want to take the next steps.
Yeah.
So you may be hitting them with more rapid fire scenarios and stuff like that.
Right.
Whereas the younger ones, you may want to look at it as the whole slow is smooth, smooth is fast philosophy. Okay, you didn't get it right, but let's break this down moment by moment of what happens, and then help them build that muscle memory.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I mean, when you're coaching any type of kids, I don't care if you're coaching adults. I mean, even when you're training somebody, oh man, my phone just went off. But when you're training somebody, even at a job, because it's the same thing as coaching, is, if somebody done something wrong, you can tell them they done something wrong, but you also need to say why you done it wrong, how you done it wrong, and how you can make it right.
Got to educate.
Because if they don't know how to fix it, then you're telling them, you suck, you done this wrong, get off my field. Are you coaching? Or are you just being a butthole?
No, that's not coaching at all.
And we see that a lot in youth
Yeah.
sports. You see that a lot. Well, you see that in any type of sports, really.
Yeah.
But, it's very frustrating when you see that. Another thing is time management. And that's big, especially in football from any level.
Oh, yeah.
You got to let them kids know, hey, we only got a certain amount of seconds to run these plays. And, look, if you're losing by 2 points, there's 30 seconds to go in the game. We got to get up to the line. That actually fosters that sometimes, if you have a deadline, you gotta get to it. So that does teach them time management skills, and a good coach can foster that.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, also, my bad. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as time management goes, I mean, I know it's not solely on the players at the youth level, but, you have a practice structure. You're to be here and dressed and ready to play at 6 o'clock. We leave here at 8 o'clock, not 7:45, not 8:15. So it's like it's a structure for them as far as, hey, I got to be there on time. Okay, this is what time I get done, so what can I do after this until I have to go to bed? Whatever. Do you got homework to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If your practices aren't structured and you don't utilize your time management, how do you expect the kids to?
Yep.
Well, and plus, then it's going to also cause frustration within the parents, too.
Oh,
and nothing else.
absolutely.
Because those parents are also relying on your time structure.
Yeah.
Because, they've got most kids, they've got siblings. Most of those siblings also play sports.
Right.
Sometimes parents are lucky and the kids are playing the sports at the same time. But that's not always the case. And they're depending on your practice to be from 6 to 8 because they got to go get their other kid at 8:30.
Yeah.
You decide that you're going to run an 8:20 practice and they've got to run 20 minutes up the road.
Yep.
Yeah, and then what happens is you end up staying at the field till 9 waiting on parents to come back.
Yep.
And see, that's like, for example, you say you got different kids playing spots. Next weekend's a prime example. On Saturday, my two youngest playing Bluefield, Virginia at 12. The team I coach in Uriah's team, we play past Beckley at 2.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough. I mean, that's the things that you really got to do. Like, that's not going to be a game I'm going to be able to help coach in. And the T-ball, I'm going to have to go with the team I'm head coaching.
Right.
And, that sucks, but, I mean, that is what it is. But, I mean, as far as, coaching overall, if you're doing it right, you should be developing life skills for these kids.
Oh, yeah.
They should be able to take something from you.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right, if you're in it for the right reasons. Yes, we want to win. I would love to go in there and win every single game. But if I can get them kids to learn the game of football or game of baseball, whatever sport I'm coaching, and get them to be good teammates and good leaders and good human beings, then that's more to me than rings and belts and trophies and all that.
I mean, that's
I would
what
rather them be good human beings and good leaders in our world.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what we need.
And that's what they talk about, why youth sports is so important, because it does start building those foundations. It starts teaching communication skills,
Yeah.
how to work as a team,
I'll tell you something else that it teaches. It teaches social skills.
It does.
Yeah.
It helps you develop friends because when I played Little League, it was like one central team for a bunch of areas. So a lot of these kids I didn't even go to school with.
Yeah.
So it helped. And half of these guys, I still talk to them. We all went to different high schools and,
I'm starting to meet,
you know.
connect back with them,
Yeah.
coaching in different sports and different leagues.
And so, you know, that's some of those are friendships that they'll have for life.
You're absolutely right.
And another thing, though, I do want to kind of go off of what you said earlier with the, I want a win thing. I don't think if you're truly not a competitive person, I don't think you should coach.
No.
And that's probably unpopular for me to say that. But you should instill in the kids that you want to be a competitor, you want to be the best, you want to win.
Yes.
Right.
Let's strive for that.
You just got to make sure that's not like in the overwhelming sense. Like
Sure.
you don't want them to get that mindset of, well, I'll do anything to win. Then
Sure.
and then you got people who want to cheat and do all that dirty stuff. And
Yeah, one thing that I also want to, when it comes to coaching and developing life skills, is if you're going to go do something, say you're going to go work in a factory. When you go there, you need to learn everything about your job. Everything. So if you're coaching, you need to learn everything about that sport that
Yep.
you can. Know the rules. Don't make up the rules as you go.
Also,
Know them.
I will say that you do learn as you go.
That's
being a
true.
coach.
Y'all learn every day, buddy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Man, I was gonna say something.
Man, I'll just say this. I saw something, and it was Terry Crews talking. And, you know, for those that don't know, Terry Crews was actually really good at football in college. And then he actually, I think he went undrafted, but he ended up making a 53-man roster for the Redskins, I believe. And they told him, you know, he made the 53-man roster. And then the week before the first game of the season, they ended up trading for another player at his position. And then ended up telling him, hey, you're cut. He's just like, now why'd you guys do me like this? You know, like, because you think about when the school season, like whenever the season starts and the school year starts, he had already gotten his kids registered in that school district. They just bought a home there because, you know, they said, you're on the 53-man roster. You're going to be with us this year. So he's stuck in D.C. at this point, you know.
That sucks.
And he said that he ended up literally just finding a job as a janitor. Literally took the very first job he could get. And swear. And he went, and every day he said that he worked, he was miserable and stuff like that. And his wife said, you know, I get that you're in a rough situation. She's just like, but whenever you were trying to make that roster, she's like, you were up every day at 4 a.m. You were working out. You were eating healthy. You know, you were doing this, you were doing that, you were doing this, you were doing that. What's the difference? He's like, I know I'm not working towards making millions of dollars as a janitor. She's like, you don't know that. So he started making his mindset every day that I'm going to go in there like I'm working towards getting that $1 million contract. And then that's how he started working his way back up and ended up getting into acting and all that stuff.
Wow.
Because, you know, it just took the right person seeing him at the right time, seeing him put all that energy and effort into his job and taking pride in his job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it takes. I mean, if you show up at practice and you're just like, let's get this over with, or you're like, you know what, I really don't feel like, let's just cancel it today. What are you really showing?
Yeah.
Like, what values are you putting on your team?
Yeah. I think in the 5 years altogether that I've coached youth sports, I think I've missed about 3 practices.
Man, I will tell you, this year I missed one, but I
think
showed up.
2.
But I showed up with like 20 minutes to go in practice. I got up at 3 a.m, drove to Richmond, Virginia, which is 5 hours from here, worked, turned around, drove straight back to the football field, in dress clothes, walked on the field, and finished coaching practice. That's the 2 practices I missed. I was still there for like 15 to 20 minutes left and still showed up. So if you're going to do this, you got to do it for the kids. But like I said, we're going to keep some shorter episodes, and this episode was strictly on coaching. We're going to hit a couple other ones this week. I hope you guys enjoyed that. What do you guys think?
Hey, I can always talk about coaching.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely. But if you like this, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this out to everybody. This is top level content from the lower level. This is the basement. Thank you.